Sarah Wollaston, who defected from the Conservatives to Change UK and then joined the Lib Dems. And we've heard a lot from the Lib Dems on revoke, on second referendum. I know Jo Swinson was talking to my colleague Andrew about many of those issues, about the broader scheme of where the party, the direction of the party. But I wanted tonight, Sarah, to use your expertise as a doctor to better understand one of the party's, I think, less understood positions. The Lib Dems have been clear in the manifesto about gender self-identification, and they've said complete reform of the Gender Recognition Act to remove the requirement for medical reports, scrap the fee, recognise non-binary identities. Trans groups have been ignored and discriminated against for a long time. We recognise that. So are you saying now that anyone can self-identify? They can self-identify as a woman without now the need for medical certification?
Well, what I would say is that imagine how humiliating it must be to undergo medical examinations and certifications in those circumstances. And also going back to your point about the level of discrimination trans people have faced, and 2 in 5 trans people are subject to hate crimes. So trying to sweep away some of the prejudices and barriers, I think, is important. And I think there are sometimes fears are whipped up about people assuming that then this must be very dangerous to other women. But I don't think it threatens women that trans people can identify and self-identify.
So let me understand then. Do you believe that gender is assigned at birth? I mean, as a doctor, would you use that phrase, it's assigned at birth, or do you believe in biological sex? Were you born a woman, or was that assigned to you at birth?
But of course, that is how we have been for centuries, that we have assigned a gender at birth. It's almost the first thing that people ask when a baby is born, is this a boy or is this a girl? But there are very many people who feel that they are in the wrong body and whose lives are being made miserable by the prejudices.
So you don't believe in biological sex at birth then?
What I believe is, yes, of course a baby is born and the first thing people ask is this a boy or a girl? But as you go through life, actually many people feel that they are being assigned the wrong gender. So I think we can sometimes get completely caught up on this and forget that the individuals at the heart of this, who, as they go through life, feel profoundly that they're in the wrong body, and are then trapped by society in that identity.
And there is huge empathy for people who are trying to work out who they are. If anyone can self-identify as a woman, they can then inhabit spaces that are meant for women only. You're happy with that?
What I would say is that there's a kind of sort of assumption that somehow trans people are a threat.
No, it's a very simple question. Are you happy? Are you happy that anyone who can identify as a woman is allowed in a woman-only space?
Right. Well, I think the point is, what happens to people who are identifying as women, who are then using men-only spaces, that they're often subject to quite serious violence, and therefore the idea that somehow these people are a threat to other women, I think, is an assumption we should challenge.
It's not that somehow we're looking at the women in this case.
Yes.
If police forces record male rapists as women by their own self-identification, is that okay?
The point is that there will be, of course, a very tiny number of individuals who will seek to exploit this in order to behave as violent criminals towards women. And you need a separate route for those people. There are some people who will be a threat, who need to be identified.
But there isn't a separate route, is there? I mean,
But the point is,
you are the patron of Rape Crisis. It calls itself a feminist organisation run by women for women. Now, if people identify as women, male-bodied people identify as women, are they allowed in your rape crisis centre where there may be abused women who are seeking refuge from violence?
They should obviously not. If there are women who feel uncomfortable in that situation with people who may appear to be men, of course you wouldn't be necessarily being seen in a group setting. That's the point.
It's their right, isn't it? This is their refuge. This is their safe house. This is their space.
Indeed. So those women, if they feel that they would be uncomfortable, they don't need to be seen together. There's an assumption that when you are within a rape crisis centre, that you would you would always therefore have to accept that there was a transgender person in the room with you. That wouldn't be the case in any case, that women will often be seen individually.
Would you take that explanation to your rape crisis centre? Would you say to them, I'm sorry, you might be worried about this, we'll put you in a separate room? Or would you say you can have deep empathy and understanding for those who are transitioning, those who fought long and hard to be heard by the society, and yet why would those advances come at the expense of women's rights, and very often vulnerable women's rights?
Exactly, but as I say, go back to my point, that there's an assumption that everyone would have to be seen in the same space at the same time. They wouldn't necessarily have to be seen in the same place.
Take it away from a rape crisis centre, take it to a swimming pool changing room, take it to a toilet, take it to a changing room, take it to somewhere where women feel they've earned the right to go and change in privacy.
Of course, I accept that. But what I would say is, coming back to transgender people, if you are a transgender woman who is being forced to be changing in an all-male changing room, that is also a deeply uncomfortable experience. And in practice, many people will choose to be in an individual cubicle. Now, if people are behaving in a way that is clearly threatening to women within a public setting, so for example,
it's not just about threatening. Of course, if anyone's threatening anyone, then you'd hope they get kicked out. It is the sense, Sarah, that women thought that they had earned the right to have changing rooms or toilets or perhaps a rape centre or a safe house, and know that that was for women. You've said for women, run by women, and yet the Lib Dems, they know this is a complicated place, but your manifesto, though, has made clear, hasn't it, that you can self-identify.
Can I just be clear? If there is somebody who is clearly not transitioning, who is somebody who comes as somebody who is very obviously still physically male, changing within a group setting in a female changing room, that's inappropriate because it makes people feel uncomfortable. But I think in practice, people who are transitioning would not choose to make other people feel uncomfortable in this way.
Your manifesto is about law. It's about law. And when women may read this in your manifesto and say, I don't know how I can vote for the Lib Dems anymore because they seem to be erasing our rights.
I don't think it is erasing women's rights. I think that what this is recognising is that there is a group of people in our society who have been deeply discriminated against for a very long time. And I think that people are whipping this up to make women feel as if somehow every time they go to a swimming pool...
So people who raise this are being alarmist?
I think that people are presenting this as if this is going to be an everyday occurrence, and that people who are trans people will want to behave in a way that makes other people feel uncomfortable. In practice, that's extremely unlikely. Most of the people I know who are trans people do not want to make others feel uncomfortable, and I think it's a form of prejudice that we're sort of promoting this idea that they would... I think that some people are promoting it in a way as if to say they would want to do that. I think in practice it would be very, very, very uncommon.
Sarah Wollaston, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.